After losing all hope of finding his missing daughter, William decided to let his father's smart dog help. What happened next will surely make you cry. Welcome to Wonderbot Animals. On a dark evening, worry filled the Brown house. William Brown walked back and forth, full of concern. His dear daughter Tammy had disappeared that morning. The living room used to be so happy. Tammy was lost in her imagination, playing, and William enjoyed watching her with her toys, and Calvin, her grandfather's dog. They had just eaten breakfast, and William felt very peaceful. He relaxed in his chair, watching them play, and let his thoughts wander. Recently, William had been very sad. His life changed completely when his wife Livy left them a few months ago, breaking their family and leaving William confused and heartbroken. He always felt lost, especially when Tammy asked about her mom. Taking care of Tammy, who needed extra help, was hard for William, and he couldn't believe Livy would leave so suddenly. The most painful part was that it was unexpected. One day, Lizzie left Tammy with a babysitter and texted William that she was gone for good. It felt like he couldn't breathe. The day Livy left was normal. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and Tammy was happily playing. William was busy with work, not knowing his life was about to change. His feelings were all over the place: disbelief, anger, and sadness. His daily routine felt pointless without his wife. He found it hard to work, overwhelmed by thoughts of what went wrong. The babysitter looked after Tammy, unaware of the changes, but for William, everything was different. He had to rebuild his life and protect Tammy from their new reality. Tammy was not like other kids. Right from the start, everyone knew she experienced the world differently. She was born with autism, which meant she needed more care and attention. But having her around made her parents' lives joyful in a unique way. Autism made Tammy experience everything more brightly and deeply. Colors looked brighter to her, sounds were more intense, and she felt emotions strongly. Ordinary things turned into amazing adventures for her. Her dad was amazed at how she found happiness in simple things. Because of her autism, Tammy needed to be watched more closely. Things that other kids did easily took more time and patience for her. William always made sure she was safe and comfortable. He put safety locks on doors, covered sharp edges, and made a safe place for her to play. Even with these extra steps, Tammy's happiness and love lit up their home. Her joy, even when things were hard, her complete trust in her dad, and her endless love reminded them of the special world of autism. The challenges were tough, but Tammy's pure joy and laughter brought light to their lives. William found the strength to keep going because of her. Her innocence and happiness gave him hope, even when he felt heartbroken. As time passed, the intense sadness from Lizzie leaving began to fade. William and his daughter adjusted to a new life without her. They were still hurt, but being together helped them heal. However, William felt that Tammy needed more fun and adventure. So, with the arrival of summer, he decided to take her to visit his father and brother in the peaceful countryside. Their family reunion was full of happiness and laughter, especially when they welcomed William and his lovely daughter, Tammy. The house was alive with laughter as they caught up on each other's lives, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. During one of these happy moments, William's father shared a fascinating story about his dog, Calvin. He had gotten Calvin earlier in the year, and the dog had quickly become a local legend for his ability to find lost things. People in the area thought Calvin had a special gift, almost like magic. William, however, wasn't convinced. He figured any dog could accidentally find things around the house and didn't see anything special about it. Despite William's skepticism, his father maintained that Calvin had an exceptional talent for finding things that were lost, and the people in their town saw Calvin as a hero. A week had passed at the cabin, and both William and Tammy felt happier. While watching Tammy play with Calvin, William started to feel sleepy, thinking back on the early start to his day when he had driven his dad to the airport for a fishing trip. The house was much quieter without his dad's loud laughter, and William let the silence lull him to sleep. When he woke up, he found Calvin sleeping at his feet, but his calmness quickly turned to panic when he noticed Tammy was gone. William's heart raced with fear. Tammy had just been there, playing, and now she was nowhere to be seen. He called out her name with no reply, then ran outside, calling louder. What had been a peaceful morning was now filled with panic and fear. William's shouts broke the quiet of the countryside, a bad feeling growing inside him. Calvin, who had been resting, started barking, picking up on William's distress. William searched the house frantically, his heart beating fast as he looked in every room, desperate to find Tammy. Calvin barked, trying to help, but William was too upset to pay him any attention. Calvin had been part of their happier times, but now he just reminded William of the happiness that seemed to have disappeared. In his panic, William even yelled at Calvin for being in the way as he searched the house, full of anxiety and anger. He tied Calvin outside to a tree, the dog barking persistently, but William was too consumed by worry to listen. The noise attracted the neighbors, who joined the search, and the quiet countryside was now filled with calls for Tammy, the community's hope driving them as they looked everywhere. William felt overwhelmed by desperation, feeling like he was in a nightmare. The thought of his daughter being in danger was unbearable. Despite the search effort, William knew calling for Tammy might not work. She didn't like loud noises or strangers, and he feared the loud search might scare her more, possibly making her hide. Yet, he couldn't stop the search, holding on to the slim chance that someone might find her. When William was trying to figure out his next steps, his brother James returned home. James had been at work, but came back when he heard about the situation. Together, full of worry, they searched the house and the areas around it. Despite looking everywhere, they couldn't find Tammy. Realizing they needed more help, they decided to go to the police and report Tammy as missing. The walk to the police station felt endless and filled with dread for William, who couldn't stop blaming himself for falling asleep. He felt a heavy burden of responsibility. At the police station, William and James explained everything about Tammy's disappearance to the officers. The police understood the situation was urgent and started searching immediately. The quiet town was now alive with concern from its residents. The police, with a description of Tammy and the details of her disappearance, began a thorough search. William and James waited, anxious for any news. As time passed, their worry grew with every ticking second. By midday, there was still no sign of Tammy. The police widened their search area, and the brothers posted flyers all over town, hoping someone would recognize Tammy. The whole community got involved in the search, turning the quiet streets into busy roads filled with concerned people looking for the little girl. As the search continued, William's guilt grew. He couldn't stop thinking that maybe he could have prevented this if he hadn't fallen asleep. The police and volunteers combed through parks, fields, and any place a child might wander off to. The entire community's effort to find Tammy gave William a small glimmer of hope. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers came together, showing immense kindness and concern. The town transformed into a place of united effort, with people walking and talking with urgency in search of Tammy. The overwhelming guilt William felt began to shift as he witnessed the overwhelming support and kindness from everyone around him. As the hours ticked by, the police did everything they could. They spoke with local people, looked at footage from security cameras, and even reached out to nearby towns for help. There had been a sighting of Tammy on camera walking into another town earlier in the day, but then she just disappeared around a corner. As day turned to night, hope started to fade. Everyone was anxious, hanging on to the hope for any update. The police didn't stop their search, even as it got darker. It had been 6 hours since Tammy was last seen, and there were no new leads. Amidst the growing tension, someone suggested using Calvin, the dog known for finding things. William was initially very upset by the idea. Just thinking about Calvin made him sad, and the thought of relying on the dog to find Tammy was hard for him to accept. As the evening approached, and anxiety increased, William felt stuck. Unable to bear doing nothing, he eventually agreed to let Calvin try to find Tammy. It was a difficult decision, and he was uneasy about it, but it seemed better than just waiting. The community showed their support, understanding William's desperation. Reluctantly, William let Calvin off the leash after his brother gave the dog one of Tammy's clothes to sniff. William didn't really believe Calvin could lead them to Tammy, but he was willing to try anything at that point. Calvin, with his keen sense of smell, immediately picked up Tammy's trail and headed towards the town centre. William and James followed, trying to keep up with the dog. The townspeople watched, torn between skepticism and hope. William was frustrated as Calvin led them around, feeling like they were just walking in circles. James kept encouraging him, reminding him they needed to try everything to find Tammy. Despite his frustration, William continued to follow, driven by his growing worry for his daughter. Just as William was about to give up, Calvin's behaviour changed. He became excited and started moving with a purpose. Surprised by the sudden change, William followed Calvin to a secluded part of town. There, they found Tammy, safe but scared, hiding under a pile of crates. She had been there all along, but her quiet spot had been overlooked by everyone except Calvin, who had managed to track her scent. Overwhelmed with relief, William cried as they reached Tammy. They hugged her tight, their hours of fear turning into tears of joy. Calvin, once doubted by William, now stood by them, sharing in the moment of happiness. The neighbours, who had anxiously awaited news, celebrated as the family reunited. The entire search party shared in the joy of Tammy's safe return, thanks to Calvin's incredible sense of smell. They all walked back home, the town now softly lit by the glow of streetlights, feeling like it was welcoming them. Arriving home, William was still in awe of the events. Calvin, the dog he had doubted, was now seen with gratitude for his pivotal role in finding Tammy. When their father returned and learned about the day's events, he gathered the family to reveal a surprising fact. Calvin was a retired police dog. He explained that Calvin's remarkable abilities came from intensive training, not magic or myths. Sitting together, their father recounted Calvin's history as a trained dog, skilled in search and rescue operations. Calvin had spent years honing his abilities to track scents and find people. William was taken aback by this revelation. He hadn't known about Calvin's past as a police dog. It was clear now that Calvin's actions were based on his training, not luck. This information shifted the family's perspective of Calvin, transforming him from a misunderstood dog into a recognized hero. Their father admitted he hadn't shared Calvin's background with the neighbors because they enjoyed their legends, and a logical explanation would spoil the mystery. William felt a bit frustrated that he hadn't been told sooner. It would have made them use Calvin's skills right away, possibly avoiding the ordeal. But the main point was that Tammy was back, safe and happy. Calvin, now resting, seemed pleased with the family's new respect for him, his tail wagging not in show, but in satisfaction of a job well done. As word of Calvin's heroics spread, he became even more of a local legend, admired and praised by all. Children looked at him with awe, showing him respect they hadn't before. The community celebrated the family reunion and Calvin's significant role in it. The event reminded everyone that extraordinary achievements often result from dedication and specific skills, not just magic. The story ended with a reflection on trusting trained animals in critical tasks and the incredible abilities some dogs have to locate things by scent. The narrative closed by inviting viewers to share their experiences and thoughts on the topic, wrapping up with a call to return for more stories in future videos.